Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at @JessinoTweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. Welcome to another match preview. We're going to be going through all the stuff, everything, press conference, lineups, availability ahead of Arsenal's huge match against Everton at the Emirates. So make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. I apologize for being late. I had every intention of being on time, but my camera wasn't turning on and it was being really weird and I was freaking out, and it took restarting my computer 5 times in order for it to connect and do all the things so that I could be available. So it's literally I'm just happy I made it. So but I'm sorry that I was a little bit late. I told you guys yesterday that I was going to be doing a segment on Premier League Fan Zone, and I posted a little clip of it on my Twitter, and it's also the intro video on this channel, or it's a part of it, so you guys can check some of that out there. I'll get more information about where you guys can see it. I think it's on the Premier League app, so give me more time to figure out exactly where the link is so that I can send that to you guys. But it was a really interesting conversation. We talked about how I became an Arsenal fan, a little bit about the title race, Martinelli and Arteta, and the differences between this team that we're seeing now versus teams of Arsenal's past. And so it was a nice conversation. And so, yeah, I'll give you guys more information on that. But if you want to see a clip of it, you can. It's on this channel as the intro video when you guys first come in. And it's also, it's a part of that. And then it's also pinned on my Twitter, so you guys can see it there. But you guys, it's a really important game. It's our game in hand. We've been talking about this game in hand for a long time. Okay, game in hand. These are the 3 points that I think set us up really nicely going into the back end of the season, the business end of the season, because Manchester City, even though they haven't been as good as we've known them to be in the past, they're still a very dangerous team, and they can turn it on just like that. And so having that little bit of a buffer of basically a game, where we have an additional win, it puts the emphasis on them to have to hope that we drop points more than once in order to overtake us. And so not getting these 3 points would make us have to be really watching their games to drop points. And I don't want that. I want us to have the little bit of buffer. So beating Everton at home is so important. But we know Everton over the past couple of years has been a little bit of a bogey team for Arsenal. Our record as of recent against Everton is not very good. I think we've lost five out of the last 6 times that we played them. But we can mark this game at the Emirates as our 100th win over Everton in the Premier League. In the Premier League if we beat them. So it's interesting because Arteta head-to-head against Sean Dyche is not great, but Sean Dyche's overall records against Arsenal are not good. So it's one of those where I do think that Arteta can get the best of Sean Dyche if we have learned our lesson from the, I guess, schooling that we got at Goodison Park. And you'll probably be like, Jessica, how is it a schooling? It just was the typical new manager bounce. They're set up really comfortably in a super low block. They defend with their lives. They're gassed, about having a new manager. They beat us physically in midfield, and we were sloppy defensively. And it's exactly what Sean Dyche wants to do against an Arsenal team. He also limited the space in midfield and gave us the flanks, but also doubled up on our wingers to make it really difficult for Saka and Martinelli to operate. And so we found it really difficult at Goodison Park to really get going. And I don't think the loud crowd really helped us either. But we'll be at our place, and we've played against a couple of different teams since then that have tried to employ similar tactics against us. And we've been able to come up victorious in some instances and not so great in others. Against Brentford, I was at that game, and I thought they were a better version of Everton. Although Everton got the 3 points, I think Brentford carried a more significant attack, a more dangerous attack. And because our defense wasn't up to its usual standards, we could have been blown away 3 or 4-0 in the first half. But we were able to figure that out in the second half and break through that low block by using the fluidity of the front line to create chaos and give Brentford something to think about. And Trossard got his goal from just doing that. Obviously, defensively, we were not good on their one chance in the second half, and we ended up drawing. But then when you go into, the Aston Villa match, where I thought they also, it wasn't as deep of a block, but they were set up well defensively, and then they hit us on the counterattack. Again, defensively, we were not great, but we had to really work through the gears to try to get through those small spaces between their defenders in order to get some daylight to attack. Then you move forward to Leicester, where we played against another block where they tried to hit us on the counter. They were so bad attacking wise. We did a lot of the work there. But again, it was the chaos that was created by Martinelli and Trossard switching places that made it difficult for Leicester to live with. And then we eventually got the goal. So we've had some practice since Goodison Park to get this done. And so I would imagine that they're going to sit in a block. They're going to try to beat us up. They're going to try to waste a lot of time. They're going to do a lot of that same stuff that Newcastle was doing to us and Brentford is doing to us. But we have had enough experience from then till now to get 3 points out of this match. And so, yeah, it's so interesting because I do think I feel a lot more confident now than I did a couple of weeks ago about this particular game, just because I've seen the team kind of work through how to unpack these deep blocks. And so we'll see what Arteta goes with. The Mad Saga says, loving these streams, just great content and takeaway point. Come on, you Gunners. Martin N says, just put a bucket of worms in the technical area to get them distracted and we'll be fine. Andrew says, first 15 minutes will be crucial against Everton. Must dribble at the defense and draw players. Exactly. Boy says, we have Saka. They'll need 3 to stop him. Jamie B says, Trossard and Martinelli in for Martinelli for me, then bring the speedster on to finish them in the second half. Tierney's in attack said, you said top 4 was the goal anyways after the 3-1 loss. What changed your mind that we win the title in a couple of games? Awesome stream. Well, it was a little bit of a funny tweet, like after, actually, I think I said top 4 was always the goal before that. I didn't say it after the Man City loss. I said it after, I tweeted that after the Brentford game, I think. So it was actually before that. And it was more of just a funny tweet. Obviously, people don't take things lightly on Twitter. They take everything super serious, but it's true. Top 4 is the goal. And so, anytime we hit a little bit of a rough patch, I'm like, but remember, top 4 was only the goal. But I'm still kind of like not as gung-ho as other people are about 100% will win the title. I think we have more than a good enough chance to do so. I think we're in a really decent position. But I've always kind of maintained that like Man City's experience for me is always going to be something that's in the back of my mind, making me think like they'll be able to get it over the line. And our lack of experience might be the reason why we don't get it. But the team has shown something in the last couple of games that I didn't see them do before that. So what people tend to do is everything is about results-based analysis. After the Manchester City match, I was very critical of the team in isolation of that one game because I felt like that was the game that was going to turn the momentum into Manchester City's path. Now, I was wrong about that. Manchester City dropped points to Nottingham Forest, but my main criticism was I think our team is more than good enough to beat Manchester City at home. And I was really disappointed by the mistakes at the back that were really unforced errors that we should do better with and our lack of clinical edge in the final third. People take that as being super critical of the team, like I hate them, but I actually respect them enough to say that they should have done much better than being okay with losses and saying like, okay, well, we're the young team and so these things just happen. I actually think they're better than that. And I think they probably went into the locker room feeling like they were better than that as well. So I was wrong about the aspect of Manchester City being able to kind of put together a decent run of form beyond that. But at the same time, I mean, they beat us, they drew to Nottingham Forest, and then they beat Bournemouth. So they're still on a decent run of form. Depending on how we are against Everton, I think that could be either a really big carrot for them to kind of like push forward or kind of get them thinking, okay, well, Arsenal are really serious about this, right? So I understand why people get really bogged down in like, okay, well, you were super negative about that game, so you didn't think that we can win the title. It's not that I don't think we can win it. I just feel like I'm still in the period of like things can change really quickly. A couple of days ago, a couple of weeks ago, it felt like we were perfect and nothing could stop us. Then we lost a couple of games and it seemed like, okay, well, Manchester City is the favorites. Off of the back of that Manchester City win, by the way, the betting odds went heavily in Manchester City's favor. So it's not just me that thought that that was going to be a game that changed the trajectory. A lot of people did. So I get that people want to throw that back up like, okay, well, you didn't think that we could do it after that game. For me, that game was monumental and I was wrong about that. But, you know, things can still really change. Do you know what I mean? And so I think we just have to take things game by game, not get too far into the future about, okay, well, we're 100% going to win the league or we're 100% not going to, just seeing how things unpack from here. But yeah, Andrew says such a comfort when it doesn't matter who Arteta plays on the left wing. I agree. Boy says Partey and Jorginho has to be some secret midfield combo Arteta has tried on Football Manager. Let's see. Tamina says Arsenal will smash Bournemouth 4-0. And that's our next game after this one. So let's talk a little bit about the press conference that Arteta did today regarding the Everton match. So, you know, he talked about Thomas Partey, of course, and he said he hasn't trained much. He's had a session and he will train today. It is what it is. He was out for a couple of weeks and he needs to get back into rhythm. Realistically, like, this is probably the best case scenario for Arsenal, is that we brought in somebody in January that allows us not to have to rush Thomas Partey back because, yeah, we lost against Manchester City, but Jorginho was not the reason why we lost that game. You know, he wasn't the story. He was quite good in that game. You know what I mean? And then, you know, he played against Aston Villa and he was really, really good. Man of the match. He was also a lot of people's man of the match against Leicester. And so we have that buffer now to allow Thomas Partey to get fully fit. And I think the two of them are going to allow us to really focus a lot on the league, but also put it together a decent run in Europa League. I still don't think that we should just like throw that to the side and just fully rotate against Sporting because it's still a chance at a trophy. We haven't been good in the cups in the last couple of seasons, and I think momentum is key. I think every time that you go out of a cup, you feel a little bit of that dip, you feel a little bit of that, you know. I think we just need to continue to play strong teams in both competitions and try to win everything. That's because I think momentum is so important. But Jorginho and Thomas Partey together allow us to put together strong teams for both competitions, which is great. So I think those are the fact that Partey hasn't played, hasn't trained, makes me think that he might not start in this match against Everton. And we can talk about how that could affect the way that we play against them tomorrow. He talked about what happened between William Saliba and Gabriel at the end of the Leicester match. It was totally overblown. Arteta said they were a happy marriage. They love playing with each other, but they are really demanding of each other, which is good. Everything is fine. I don't know why people were trying to make a big deal out of that. Like, who cares? Like, they were laughing at the end of it. Like, it is what it is. And quite frankly, I want my players to keep each other accountable. I don't want it to just be, well, we won, so it's fine. Like, there's always something that you can improve upon. And I just think that people are always looking for something, and there was nothing there. He talked about it, you know, if Everton is a case of revenge. He said, it's a case of doing things better than we did when we played them a few weeks ago, and earning the right to win the game. Hopefully tomorrow we play much better than we did that day. And against Everton in particular, I think we just didn't even get involved with the earning the right to play kind of aspect of the game. We allowed them to be really physical against us and win every first ball and second ball, and they were really up for it. And it's something that we've been really good at this season, is being good with first balls, second balls, pressing, you know, being first to it. And we kind of started seeing that second half against Aston Villa, against Leicester as well. And when we play that way, it's really difficult for teams to get going. But against Everton, we didn't do that. And so I think that's pretty much what Arteta is saying, is that we have to earn the right to play. Once we do that, they'll fall into their deep block and it just be about unpicking the lock. He talked about, let's see, on becoming more difficult to know what's his best 11. He said, we assess the situation every single day. The fact that we have options now, we have players coming back from injury, gives us alternatives, which is going to be crucial. Players can't maintain the same level for 10 months. It's just impossible. We need to change. We have to generate alternatives and be much more predictable for opponents sometimes as well. We have those options now. And he's spot on with that. I mean, in the last 2 seasons, it really has felt like we've been playing with a certain 11. And if we even rotated just a little bit, or we took somebody out of the starting lineup, everything just kind of fell apart. And Trossard and Jorginho have been a big part of that. If you guys, watched the under 21s yesterday, ESR and Kivior got some minutes in that game as well to get their fitness up, because Arteta said we're going to need them in the next couple of games. I think they're going to feature pretty heavily in the Europa League. And so having those options of Kivior, of Tomiyasu, of Tierney, of Jorginho, of Vieira, that can help us maintain a certain level, and also give the starters an opportunity to rest, is going to be super important down the stretch when we're in multiple competitions. He also talked about, let's see, who cares about this Potter stuff? On whether he has spoken to bukayo saka about not getting decisions. He said, we talk about every situation in the game and every moment that has an impact on the team or individually for him, and he can cope with it. Obviously, that's been a big topic of conversation, is whether or not bukayo saka is getting enough protection. I did find it funny that I saw, one of the kind of like big sports accounts on Twitter were saying that, is Jack Grealish being protected enough because he's been fouled this amount of times and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, just the fact that people are being called for fouls against him lets you know that he's being protected. I don't think we need referees to be buffering around Saka to keep people from fouling him. But protection to me means the players getting cards and getting called for the fouls. And sometimes it just feels like they just are like, he can handle it. And it's so annoying. But Saka's not the type, from my perspective, that I think is going to sulk, or we're going to use that as an excuse or anything. Saka's having this season of his life. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that even though he's not getting the calls, he just kind of goes along with it. And it's a part of his mentality and personality. This is on Jakub Kivior and Smith Rowe. He said they were really good against in the under 21 game. Obviously they needed some minutes, and at the moment they haven't had much exposure for different situations. It was great to see them on the field because we are going to need them in the next couple of games. 100%. They're going to be super important, and that you can't really take much from that under 21s game. I think it was just to get them minutes, but we'll get to see them soon, and we'll see what they're all about, especially Kivior, because I know a lot of us are like really excited to see what he's about. And he spoke about, on the possibility of losing players that aren't getting many minutes in the summer. He said, I don't know. I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about what's best for the team and the players who earn the right to play minutes that they all deserve. We're going to try to do that in the next couple of games. So obviously, because we haven't been playing in multiple competitions, we've seen some players lose some of their playing time, Kieran Tierney being one of the main ones, and people don't like it. But we're going to be in Europa League, and we know that Tierney will probably play some minutes there. We'll see Vieira play some minutes there, Kivior, ESR. So he's going to be important down the stretch. I don't think we need to be like super worried about, the playing time for Kieran Tierney right now. So, yeah. So Arteta does have some selection headaches. He may not have, an issue in terms of, like, we know the main people that are going to start because they always start. But I think there are some, how fit is Nketiah? Nobody really asked that question, which is interesting to me because he was not selected against Leicester because he had some sort of a knock. So does that mean that Trossard is going to keep his spot, or do we? Because we know Martinelli is going to start. Martinelli is going to start. So who's going to start through the middle? And so if Nketiah is still carrying a knock, does that mean that Trossard just keeps his spot? I think regardless to if Nketiah is fit or not, Trossard deserves to start through the middle because it gives us the Martinelli that we know and love that's able to switch those positions and find his place a little bit closer to the center of the goal. And then he has the kind of situation with Thomas Partey and Jorginho. What does he do? Do we get back to playing with Thomas Partey? I think, you can probably imagine that Everton will go in with the same midfield that they had against us when we went to Goodison Park. So Doucouré, Idrissa Gueye, and Amadou Onana. And so that's a quite physical group. And Jorginho, he's been one of the best players over the last couple of games, but we know that he's not the most physical. But at home, aren't we going to have the majority of the possession? So wouldn't it be good to have Jorginho there anyway? It's a dilemma, but playing at home makes it a little bit different because at Goodison Park, they were really encouraged by the fans and stuff like that. They won't have that same encouragement against us at home. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Arteta does with that. So we'll go ahead and, build our own lineup here. So make sure you guys are liking this video and subscribing to the channel. And we can all kind of chit chat about who we think should start and all of that. So let me just share my screen. Okay. So yeah, I can see that you guys can see that. Obviously Ramsdale, Gabriel, who was really good against Everton at Goodison Park. He was probably one of the only players that could hold his head high after that game. Saliba, who we'll talk about his contract situation in a second as well. Then right back should be Ben White getting back to his best, which you love to see it. Zinchenko, hopefully against Everton, I did find him to be a little bit frustrating because he was on the ball so much and he was kind of rushing the passes and getting a little bit like, oh my gosh, like where are the passes, where are the openings, where's this? Hopefully he can stay calm in this game. But otherwise, I think Zinchenko has been really good and has deserved to have his spot. Let's see, is this the xhaka position? I imagine xhaka will start. Where I think it might get interesting is maybe against Bournemouth. We'll see Vieira come in. That's what I'm hoping. Against Bournemouth, I want to see Vieira play and start because I do think once we got ahead against Leicester, Granit Xhaka started playing better. But when we were really looking for the goal and chasing it, I did find him to be a little bit like lost. And every time the ball got to him in the final third, I felt like I wanted somebody else there. But as of now, especially playing against Everton, I think it's obvious that he's going to be the person that starts, but he probably just needs a rest. Odegaard, obviously he'll start. And then we know Martinelli is going to start. He's had 2 goals in the last 2 games. Like there's no way he won't start. And then you have Saka. And so it leaves the last 2 positions. So let me see what you guys are saying in the chat about who you want to see played in these positions. Drew says xhaka needs rest. I agree. Elliot says time for Partey, Jorginho, Odegaard midfield. Let Xhaka sit out this one. Won't have the strength to handle the robust Everton midfield. I just don't know if we're playing up against a deep block, what do we expect Thomas Partey to be doing in that left 8 position? Because I love Thomas Partey. I think in terms of like the way that he plays, I think he's really, really good, but I don't necessarily view him as a creative player. I don't really think he's somebody that operates around the box well. And so the only thing I could say is maybe you push Jorginho a little bit further up so that he can play make and Thomas sits deep. But I think at the same time, it just doesn't feel like something that Arteta would do. So I'm not sure, you guys, really. I'm really not. Alex says J20 or Partey. That's what we were talking about. Let's see. Yusuf says Trossard and Partey is who you would choose. I just feel like because he hasn't really trained, maybe that's Arteta kind of saying, like, we're not going to rush him back. And the thing is we really need Thomas Partey and Gabriel Jesus for the final stretch. And we're going to be playing some really difficult matches at the end of the season. I know we have to go Anfield away, St. James Park. We have to go to, where else do we have to go? We have to go somewhere else that's pretty difficult as well. Oh, we have to go to Etihad. So if you want those two players to be available, we have to make smart decisions now. And we're playing against teams that we should be beating, especially at home. Everton and Bournemouth has to be a banker. It has to be 6 points, and it should be not easy, but pretty, standard wins for Arsenal. So from my perspective, I think because, you want Thomas Partey to be there, the Etihad away, you want him to be there at St. James Park, and you want him to be there at Anfield, maybe it's best not to rush him back, especially because he hasn't played that much. Let's see what you guys are saying. There's like so many like Spurs things. I don't understand why we're talking about Spurs. I really, really don't. See, Wilder says maybe include Partey from the bench depending on how the game goes. Yeah, exactly. Like kind of like how he played against Leicester when he came in at the end and we were finishing off the game. That probably would be the best option because, again, like if he hasn't trained, we know how Thomas Partey is when he's not at 100%, he's not great. And so I just feel like you just keep the midfield the way that it is. We should at home be controlling the majority of possession against Everton. And so Jorginho would be really good for that. And then we just need Thomas Partey to actually be available in the games that really matter at the end of the season. I think Jorginho kind of has to start. And then maybe against Bournemouth, you see Thomas Partey come back in. We also have an international break coming up soon. And maybe let me look at the schedule because I don't want him to get injured again. Like I can't handle it anymore. It's just too much, Let's see. So basically we play Everton and then at the weekend we play Bournemouth. And then on the 9th we play Sporting. So essentially you could play Jorginho all the way until Fulham away. You really could, you play Jorginho, Everton at home, Bournemouth at home. You also play him against Sporting, and then you could play Thomas Partey against Fulham, or you can introduce Thomas Partey back in against Bournemouth, then bring Jorginho in against Sporting, and then, go like that. And then we have an international break after March 19th. And so, that's when it's really going to get after March 19th, you guys, and we have that little stupid international break. That's when we have Leeds at home, and then we play Liverpool away. We play West Ham away. We play Southampton at home, then Man City away, Chelsea at home. So that's the final stretch once we get past that international break. And so we have to be really careful with Jesus and Thomas Partey now in order to make sure that they're available then. So I would say I would actually be just totally fine with Thomas Partey sitting Everton out and then maybe introducing him back against Bournemouth and then letting him play 60 minutes and then play Jorginho at the end of that match. We have Jorginho, so use him. Let's see. Ify says international break again. The World Cup just ended a few months ago. I know, it's so annoying. Macau says the physicality of Everton requires Partey plays. Everton's midfield is very athletic, so will be overran if Partey doesn't play. I don't know if I 100% agree with that. I think with them at their place with the new manager bounce and stuff like that, yes, we weren't quite up for it, but we had Partey in midfield then and we were kind of getting overran. I think it's more about, is the team up for it? With Jorginho and at home, we're going to have a lot more of the play. We're going to have a lot more of the ball. But what worries me about Thomas Partey is when he's not at 100%, he's not great. And so my fear is that you put him out there and he's not really ready to go. And then we might as well have just started Jorginho anyway. So I completely understand the reluctancy because they're so physical. But I don't even know if it was just about them being physical. I just think they wanted it more than we did. And if we want it just as much as they do, I think even if you have Jorginho out there, we should win the game. Let's see. Hoj says, can't be overran if they can't get the ball off of us. Jorginho over Partey for me. S7 says, Partey was there at Goodison. We still got overran. I think that was more just the team wasn't up for it, to be honest. Tierney in attack says Saka is on form again. So, yeah, I don't want to over-index the, Everton midfield. I know that they're physical, but we will be at home, so we'll have the majority of the ball. And so they're not going to be overrunning us and all that kind of stuff. I just feel like they're going to sit in, and it's going to be about us unpicking the lock. They're not going to have Dominic Calvert-Lewin. They're going to have a small front line, probably with like a Mopé or somebody like that. So we should be able to handle it. But I completely understand. Mark Bevan says, hopefully to Bob Eddie, Zinchenko and Jay 2 miles per hour all get dropped tomorrow as they all get bullied. I haven't seen Zinchenko get bullied, but I get that. You're just, I don't know what you're even saying. Like, why would we drop all those players? Like, I don't get it. I mean, I kind of understand Eddie because, maybe he's not playing that well right now, but I don't really view all those players as getting bullied, like, I feel like that's an overstatement. Magzino says if Partey starts, then we should play Fabio. That's the thing, is you can't play Fabio until Partey is back. And so that's what I'm saying. Against Bournemouth, you start Partey and you also start Fabio Vieira. And you start to Fabio Vieira is going to be so good for us, you guys. I'm telling you. But you can't have him and Jorginho in there at the same time. So yeah, I would say against Bournemouth, maybe you do that. But I still don't see Thomas Partey starting this game based on what Arteta said. Unless he's trying to play mind games, but why rush him back? Magzino, exactly. It's 100% a myth that Zinchenko gets bullied. Like, be for real. Jesus should be back for Bournemouth or Fulham. Exactly. So yeah, and up top for me, you guys, I'm gonna go with Trossard. I think he's earned the spot based on his last performance against Leicester. I don't think Nketiah was great off of the bench. And if he's carrying a knock, there's no reason to overplay him or rush him back. So from my perspective, you start Trossard so that you can continue to have Martinelli involved in the match. And, I just think he earned it. And so it's the exact same team that started against Leicester. And then you have players that can come in and hopefully change the game. But this is what I would go with 100%. And it looks like a win for me. Cliff says, hi, everyone. Hello to you as well. Andrew says, my, so soon we change. Listen to us saying, play Jorginho. No play Partey. A few weeks ago, it was sacrilege to even consider dropping Partey. Good times ahead. Things change. Things change quickly, and I think people just needed to see Jorginho in the team and realize that he's the quality player before, I understand that some people just have to see it first. I get that because I was kind of like that. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Let's see. Martin says, where's Trossard? We absolutely need Partey. Jorginho won't be able to run if Everton bring it on the way they did in the first leg. I just don't think that they will, to be honest, Martin. I really think that was new manager bounce. Like, I don't think that was who they are as a team. Their form hasn't been amazing since then. Let's see. They beat us, then they lost to Liverpool away, then they beat Leeds at home, then they lost to Aston Villa at home. So when they played against, Liverpool and Aston Villa, they lost those games and they didn't score a goal in either of those. They've only, in the last 4 games, they've scored 2 goals and they don't have Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So I don't want to over-index that game because we know that there was the new manager bounce and stuff like that. And their form since then against teams that we've beaten and that are not in great form right now, like, they've been able to beat them. So I really don't want to over-index it, and be like, it's because they were physical that they beat us. They did have the physicality, but we also just weren't up for it. So I think Jorginho will be fine. But we also have the option maybe to bring Thomas Partey off the bench if we can. Drew says they were good against Aston Villa, just couldn't finish. I'm looking at the scoreline, but maybe. maybe they were good, but they still lost the game. Alex says, a good squad, hope with 12 players in form of a stadium. We should score 2 or more wings of confidence gradually appear. Let's see. There's like a lot of Spurs fans in here. It's really sad because all you're fighting for is what, top 4 right now? And we're over here talking about title charges and stuff, and you guys are in here watching us. It's really sad. It really is. I would hate to be a Spurs fan. I really would. So yeah, but I mean, you could also you could play Tommy. I still don't think, I would play him, but you could play Tommy to get us some more physicality in the back line. I think without Dominic Calvert-Lewin, we can pretty much, count them out as a physical force up top unless they get set pieces. But I understand people really wanted they want to have Thomas Partey in there. I just think rushing him now would be a little bit of a mistake. This team is more than good enough to beat Everton at home. And also, I think Brentford is a really physical team, quite similarly to Everton. And I thought, once we decided to use our brains and not be stupid, they pretty much had no chances until we, we were pretty much robbed at the end of that game anyway. So I think it'll be quite similar to that. But the team that played against Aston Villa in the second half, as well as Leicester away from home, if we play like that, we will beat them. It's fine, So yeah, this is the lineup that I would go with. So yeah, there's 150 of you guys in here. So make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. The last 2 things we need to talk about is Gabriel Jesus. They're saying that they're hoping that he'll be back before the international break. But people are saying that they are anticipating it to be Crystal Palace, which is literally the game before we go on to the international break. So that is still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games away. I still think it'll be sooner than that. I think it might be Fulham or something like that, but hopefully we see him soon. But I'm at the point now with Jesus where I'm I just don't want to rush him, because if we don't have him for the Etihad and Anfield and St. James, it's a wash, so Trossard is more than good enough to play against, Bournemouth at home and, to go away to Sporting, and Nketiah can do a job as well. So we should be fine. But right now I'm just do not rush him. Maybe wait until Fulham or Crystal Palace to get him going then. But they're saying before the international break is when they expect him to be back in the side with Arsenal. And in terms of Saliba, there's also been, some talk around his new deal, and that's the next thing up. It's not close. This is coming from Fabrizio Romano. Every single time he talks about us, I'm just like Will Smith, keep my club's name out your effing mouth, but at the same time, sometimes he is a decent source, and, Saka's contract is pretty much wrapped. We're just waiting on the announcement. But Saliba, he was saying that negotiations continued between Arsenal and William Saliba over a new contract. It is the next priority for the club after Saka's deal is almost done. Understand Saliba wants to stay, obviously. Talks on going in detail, salary structure of deal not final stages yet. So obviously this is the big one. I mean, the other 2 are big, but those 2 we knew Saka and Martinelli weren't going anywhere. But Saliba is a little bit of I feel like we had to almost win him over a little bit. He needed to know that he was going to get playing time. And I'm happy to see that this is moving along. He obviously wants to stay, and hopefully it gets done soon. But this would be massive, because at this time, if we had to replace him, it would cost 80 to 100 million to replace a center back of his quality. It's just not going to happen. His size, his physicality, his speed, everything, and he's young, and he's just going to get better. And so have to nail this down, but it looks like it's going to get done, which is amazing. And having Saka, Martinelli, and and Saliba all on new deals would be amazing. So we have something to look forward to. Let's see. Elliot says, Romano isn't known as a tap-in merchant for nothing. Seawalder says drop a load of wages on him. We're gonna have to, but that's what big clubs do. You have to pay your players. Like if we think that Saliba is one of the best young center backs in the world, he needs to be paid like that. You know what I mean? Let's see. Cliff says, prefer Tierney at left back. Not saying Zin isn't good, but he constantly cuts passes inside and doesn't pass to the winger, practically marking the winger obsolete, but better chemistry between Tierney and left wing. I mean, that's a preference. I think it's a preference. I think a lot of what Zinchenko does really helps us in build up. And so with Martinelli, I think it's not so much a Zinchenko issue, it's a not having Jesus issue more than anything. And so I don't think there was much of a struggle in the last game. We finally kind of figured out the formula. I thought Trossard and xhaka and Zinchenko had a good little mix over there, and they were trying to get Martinelli into good positions. So, but I understand. I just don't think Tierney's style really suits what we're doing right now, and that's why he's not playing, and it just kind of is what it is, Diallo says, real talk, is there a better destination for Saliba than Arsenal? Where could he get better? Let's not pretend we are all doing him a favor, 100%. Let's see. Magzino says Zinchenko is essential to how we play. He's performing versus United. Spurs were incredible. Exactly. I don't know. I think Tierney has a great mentality, and he's somebody that can also drag a team over the line. But I think it's just a style thing. I really, really do. I think it's a style thing. Mark is saying xhaka and Martinelli's form both dipped since Zinchenko arrived. Coincidence? Well, their form actually dropped after the World Cup. Not even just after the World Cup. I do think Martinelli just has not been himself since the World Cup. Xhaka took a little bit longer, but I don't know if it's Zinchenko did play some of the beginning of the season, and some of our best games that we played included Zinchenko. So I don't really I get that people are trying to make Zinchenko into an issue, but I feel like once Jesus comes back, or we continue to play Trossard, we'll see Martinelli come back into the fold. And also xhaka is just not making the right decisions in the final third. He had plenty of the ball in the final third against Leicester, and he made the wrong decision almost every single time. And even against Aston Villa, he was making those runs, and his cross got blocked 3 or 4 times because beyond the pattern, he can't create beyond it. And so I don't know if I'm prepared to say Martinelli and xhaka just don't play well because Zinchenko is there. I think people are really trying to reach and make Zinchenko into an issue. Martinelli needs to be able to rotate and have fluidity throughout the front line. That doesn't have anything to do with Zinchenko. That has to do with not having Gabriel Jesus. And xhaka is just somebody that in the final third doesn't have exactly the right mechanics for it, and he's falling short on his own. So I'm not sure what that has to do with Zinchenko. And xhaka is Zinchenko is our starting left back. I think xhaka just is redundant in that position, but that doesn't mean that Zinchenko is making him worse. So no. And no, we weren't just, I have to go back. You guys are just making things up now. It's actually just it's really frustrating when people just make things up. We were not just flying with Kieran Tierney. The first game of the season, Zinchenko played and we won. I know that for sure. Let me just go back to the beginning of the season. Let's see. I am looking, because you guys are just making stuff up sometimes, and it's just why are you making things up? I don't understand. There it is. Florida Cup. Okay. Crystal Palace versus Arsenal. Lineups. We won 2-0. Zinchenko played. Let's see. Let's go back. Okay, why is it doing this to me? Against, what was our next game after that, you guys? What was our next game after that? Sorry, it keeps going back for some reason. I'm going to find it because you guys are just saying whatever. I'm just looking for it, you guys. Give me a second. Okay. Leicester lineups. Let's check. Zinchenko played that game. We won 4-2. So that's 2. I could keep going. I know I can keep going because Zinchenko, I know he played against Bournemouth. We beat Bournemouth 3-0. Zinchenko played against Spurs when we beat them at home. When did Tierney actually play? I think he started to play kind of like midway through, right? But yeah, like Zinchenko has been a part of some of our bigger games this season. So Tommy played against Liverpool. Against Manchester United away, Zinchenko played, but we didn't win that game. Against Manchester United at home, when we beat them, Zinchenko played. So when are these games when we were just flying that Tierney played? Like, what are you saying? Oh, I don't even know. Oh, this is somebody? Oh, this is Clucking Bell. Oh, he has a different account now. Fair enough. Fair enough. But no, we were not flying with Tierney. I can't. But yeah. So let's get some predictions for the game against Everton. What are you guys thinking? Who do you think is going to score? How do you think it's going to go? We're going to win. Is it going to be easy? Are we going to be biting our nails? What do you think? What do you think? Get your predictions out there. I'm just going to check Twitter really quick, make sure nothing has happened. Ivan Toney admits to multiple breaches of FA betting rules, pled guilty to as many as 262 charges against him. Wow. He might not play for a while, right? That would be crazy, honestly. There's so much going on the timeline right now. But luckily, none of it has anything to do with us, which is great. Like, for real, for real. Jay says 2-1 Arsenal, trossard, and xhaka. Drew says 1-0. Eddie scores off the bench. Alex says 2-0. Being Uki says 2-0 to Arsenal. Rajma says 2-1 to the Arsenal. Ellie Roberts says 3-0 Arsenal. Saka back on the score sheet. I would love that. Smart Cookie says it's a home game. We should win. Mr. Austin says 0-0. That's terrible. Diallo says just ignore these stupid takes. The thing is, like, I love Tierney, but I know I felt like he has struggled in games when he's had to play. So Zinchenko does not need to be like targeted. It doesn't make sense to me. Let's see. Diallo says we don't keep clean sheets at home. So 3-1. Cliff, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Cliff is saying 2-1 to the Arsenal, last minute goal by Saka. Maxino says, I want us to absolutely batter them as revenge. Albert says 4-1 Arsenal, trossard, Saka, and nketiah. Martin says 2-0 to the Arsenal. Abraham says, I want 3-0 to the Arsenal. I want us to make a statement, to be honest. Like, I know I would take like a 1-0. I don't care. But at the same time, I do feel like we need a little bit of revenge against them. I think they made a big deal out of that win, kind of like Brentford a little bit, the first day of last season or whatever. And I just think we need to make a statement that we're really serious, you know. MM says fast start is necessary, in my opinion, for tomorrow's game. As the game drags on, it will suit Everton more. Dark arts, exactly. Scoring early will be important, and hopefully there's no VAR mistakes or anything like that. If we deserve a penalty, please give it to us, you know, like, hello. Jamie B says, I want to humiliate them and send a message to Man City and Man U. Exactly. I think that's what we need. 100%. C. Wilder says 3-0, although every team feels like Real Madrid to me at the moment. Boy says 3-0 and nketiah hat trick. That would be great. I don't care who scores. I just want the goals in the back of the net. You know, so everybody seems really confident, which is great. Obviously, you know, tomorrow's game what time is it? 7:45 UK time. So trying to figure out a way, because like I'm always on the football terrace after live, and I feel like I miss doing something right after the game. So maybe depending on the result, I'll do like a late night thing after I get off of the terrace so that, we can chit chat about the game. But, we always download like the day after anyway. So I'll try to do something, but no promises there. But I just miss you guys after the game. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. Have a good evening, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, y'all. Oh, my score prediction is 2-0 Arsenal. Bye, y'all.